a red flag flying here.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Chaos, which is the beginning of tonight's show. It's our 22nd edition. Can you believe that? We're approaching, we passed that 21st birthday and we're approaching 25 now. So that's going to be a big excitement. Thank you for joining us. We've got a great show for you tonight with the normal team. Say hello, Paul.
Hello.
Stuart.
Hello.
Samantha.
Hello.
Dream team, they are so brilliant and they're so good. You know how good they are. Tonight we're going to be discussing Trump and we're going to be discussing Sunak and we're going to be discussing lockdown. And we have got a guest, sort of one of the candidates is going to join us about 9:30. So that's really very exciting. Okay, moment of the week. I'm going to break with tradition. I'm going to tell you my moment of the week because I was just so devastated and so down after hearing this. And they brought
Hang on then, you do need an introduction for this one, John. We're going to get something right.
So, John Clare, what's your moment of the week? I'll tell you what my moment of the week is. It really depressed me. The indices of deprivation have come out, and they've measured 2015 against 2019, and County Durham has slid from the 84th most deprived authority in the country to the 60th most deprived. That it's not going up, that is going down. It's getting worse because the most deprived area is one, of course, and there's one some port authority that is number one, but we've gone way down. In Newton Aycliffe, every single area seems to have slid back in some way. Some of them into really bad areas. There's a number of them that have gone down and sort of now they're in the worst 2,000, the most deprived 2,000 in the country. That's out of 33 LSOAs that they call. So it's just so depressing, and it's nothing to do with the people because it's across the county, and we've worked so hard, people, to bring industry, to bring inward investment. The business park is going as well as anything could possibly want it to go. GDP is growing, and we're all getting poorer. And it's quite simply because the distribution of wealth in this country is evil, and we're all working our butts off, and sort of there's other people skimming off the money and taking it because it's not coming here. And Boris Johnson has promised to level up. Well, we desperately need somebody to level us up, and that involves addressing the system of the distribution of wealth. It's awful. I'm just so down today, and I hope it doesn't show in the way I run the show. That's me done. Let's start. Stuart.
My moment of the week is the company Pfizer has apparently created a vaccine that is 90% effective. And one of the things I found really incredible about this is how many people are jumping to take credit or assign credit in places. Every time you scroll up Facebook, you notice people going, isn't Boris great? He's got us a vaccine. And then you'll see somebody else going, well, Trump put money in for it, so it's Trump's vaccine. And everybody's taking credit, and there's arguments about who funded it and who came up with it. And nobody's actually thought about the process of actually getting, a vaccine and turning it into vaccinations. Cold storage, transportation, people stick needles in arms. Everybody's arguing over who gets to be the savior.
My hero is the child that it's been tested on people aged 85 to 12. And my hero is that child of 12 who volunteered to go forth and get that tested on him and then given coronavirus to see whether it worked or not. It's sort of a 12-year-old hero. God bless him. Paul?
Just a little one. I think we should give credit to the German people, the Turkish immigrants, who actually did the work and did it, who, under the new rules that have just passed today, I believe, wouldn't be allowed into the UK after Brexit. So let's have a think about that, eh?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, it's going to be mainly immigrants in the NHS who are handing this out to all those people, those millions of people. 20 million they're going to hand out. Great news, Stuart, actually. Are you going to be getting it? Do you think you'll be one of those that qualify?
I'm not sure what qualifies a person to get it, how they're going to be organising.
They've said that they're going to start with people in care homes and their carers first, then 85 plus and NHS workers next, and then coming down in layers, 80 plus, 75 plus, 70 plus, so on, down as far as they can go. People under 50 with health conditions are going to jump up the queue. But basically, Sam and Paul, certainly, you've had it, I think, really. You're waiting on something else. So, anyway, thank you, Stuart. Paul!
Mine's a pretty negative moment of the week. The public inquiry into Grenfell, the Grenfell Tower fire, that awful tragedy that, seemed to be, a real beacon of capitalist failure, to be honest. The public inquiry is being told today that the cladding companies are little more than crooks and killers. Lawyers for the bereaved and survivors have claimed that the companies Arconic, Celotex and Kingspan did widespread and persistent wrongdoing, and they knew that what they were doing was dangerous to life. So it turns out that they've looked into the emails that they were sending each other, and one email from Arconic said they knew how bad the product's fire performance was, so they sent an email saying this is something we'll have to keep as very confidential, and admitted that the panels would spread fire over the entire height of a tower. And Celotex, which made most of the plastic foam insulation, produced a chilling internal presentation in 2014, saying it would be able to market its combustible fire product partly because nobody understood the test requirements. So this seems to be, companies that don't seem to be held to account at all, who knew how bad their product was and yet thought it was appropriate to clad the entire building in it and also buildings around the country. And there is still so much cladding, and the cladding that is being removed is being charged to the residents of those buildings rather than being charged to these companies or to the government, who really failed on this. So once more, government failure. Sick to death of it. They don't seem to care about people who aren't rich.
I'm always absolutely astonished that we let these people get away with this. People just, oh, that's terrible. Let's move on. Yeah. Hello. We've got somebody else.
Oh, Melody's PJ Masks toy has jammed. This is a serious issue. If we can get Boris Johnson to deal with it, please. My husband has gone to the shop to get some grown-up juice, so I am here. But it's okay. You can sit here with me. Oh, there's Eddie. I think he's there. Yes, my moment of the week is not the PJ Masks toy breaking.
You got a moment, Sam. It's quite clearly the thing of the moment of the week is the PJ Masks. What are PJ Masks? Have I got the name right? What is it?
PJ Masks, yes. Because bedtime is the right time to fight crime. I think you will find.
Speaking of bedtime, come on.
Yeah.
PJ's the right time to fight crime.
It's a TV program.
What does it do?
It's a TV show.
You put the child, the alter
Child in
ego in there, not the actual child, the cartoon child in there, and the superhero comes out the bottom. It's a transforming booth, but it is broken and it's causing serious issues. Sorry. We've got our priorities straight in this house.
I was taking far too long about this, but sort of I laughed today because I was at this international conference at which I was speaking, and sort of we were discussing the climate change and the problems about sort of making public buildings energy efficient and all these things, and I came back and sort of the big thing on my inbox is that Durham County Council have made a mess when they've been cutting the grass. And sort of I felt much the same way this morning as I did then. We've got to get our priorities right. And sort of these high-level things are just unimportant. What matters is cutting the grass and PJ masks. Okay, but tell us about your big moment of the week. It was exciting, wasn't it?
Yes, my actual moment of the week is, and I think grass cutting is very important. I'll be on record for saying that. Yes, yesterday.
Get elected.
Yesterday, I got on the radio, and the way that it happened, it went like this. My phone rang, and it was BBC Radio Tees, and they were like, can you do a live interview with an actual historian about why you think locomotion number 1 needs to come to Shildon? And I was like, yes, because that, it's my job to champion Shildon. But I tell you, if you could see me, I was shaking like a leaf. I almost went and was almost sick afterwards. Like I was so nervous. But I think I did a good job.
I've got something to say here, because you do an interview, a live interview with a real historian every week of your life. I mean, it's outrageous. I've clearly been
yes, but you not
a real historian. The second thing, I listened to you. You were very good. Do you realise who you were arguing with?
Yes, I do. There's a gentleman called Chris Lloyd who is very active in the hashtag Keep the Loco in Darlaw campaign, and very well exposed in the Northern Echo. He contributes to the Northern Echo on historical things.
He's the chief editor of the chief editor of the Northern Echo. He's lovely man.
Which is a great
very well loved.
I'm sure he is lovely, but he's also lying, and he knows he's lying. So that pushes my sort of attitude about how lovely he is a little bit.
So you think you ought to stay in locomotion, do you?
Yes. So the current situation is locomotion number 1 is in Darlington, and it's been in Darlington for a very long time. I respect the fact it's been in Darlington for a very long time, and I do feel sorry for the people in Darlington who have an emotional connection to it. But the fact is, the reason locomotion number 1 is important is because it pulled the first public passenger railway, and that journey started in Shildon. And it's very much historical revisionism to write Shildon out of the railway story. And unfortunately, that's what the Darlington campaign are trying to do.
It was put on the rails at Hangton Station in Newton Aycliffe. I think we need to never... The first time it hit the rails was...
Okay. But when it became a public passenger railway... No.
I've got a lovely place it can go in the leisure centre. And we'll just solve this by if you have 2 sides and you can't decide where to put it, in the middle is obviously the answer to it. You were great, Sam, and I thought that you didn't mention the main thing, though, which for me is that who owns it?
Exactly. It's owned by the Science Museum Group.
So who gets to say where it goes? That's the end of it for me. It's like sort of you deciding where I'm going to park my car. Park my car where I want. Thank you very much. Okay. We've been a bit down on our comments, listeners, in sort of and really you've been letting us down on things to talk about after the show with your questions and your comments. Surely you've got something to say about Stuart and vaccines, or Paul and that deeply, deeply shocking thing about them knowing he was going to burn everybody to death and saying, keep it quiet. And then surely you've got a view on whether it ought to be in Shildon or Darlington. Surely you've got something to say. So to interact with us. But for the moment, it's we're running late now for...
Now it's time for the big story.
And of course, there's only one big story, though. To be honest, I've lost the will to live, and it's still not over. It's not going to be over till the 13th, and I've got something to say to about that later on to Paul. But for the moment, I'm going to go to you, Paul. Let's start talking about the US election, and I'm going to start off by a question. Sort of, is Trump mad, bad, or brilliant?
I think he's underestimated. The way he manipulates things is really underestimated. Like, if you wanted to set out with a game plan, he's been laying these breadcrumbs for months and months. The election's going to be corrupt. And then he's saying, oh, the mail-in's going to be bad. And then Biden's saying, mail in because it's safer. I don't want you to go and get COVID. And Trump saying, no, turn up on the gates. And then they set it up so that, like, some of the Republican-controlled states counted the postal ballots last. So it looked like Trump was way in the lead. And then, like, Biden caught up and things. And it was really... certainly, I don't think he's particularly clever, but I think he's very manipulative and he knows what he's doing, and he was never going to accept defeat. I do think, though, we have moved towards a really a more positive time, because you've got like Biden's position on the Good Friday Agreement, which is really important to me. With I've got my family are Northern Irish on one side, and Laura's family are Northern Irish on one side. And you had like Tory ministers who, like a couple of months ago, were saying, well, it's not going to be bad. I've never read the Good Friday Agreement, despite the fact it's only 35 pages long. Like, I've read the Good Friday Agreement, and I don't have to make any decisions on it. It's 35 pages. It's not really that bad, but you can tell that whatever deal Boris Johnson was going to come up with was going to be really poor. Biden really cares about this, and suddenly Boris Johnson, the most important thing to him is the Good Friday Agreement, and the most important thing to him is also climate change. And he's just had to change. He's changed. So the dynamic of UK politics has changed so much because of who is going to be in the White House. And then and we've also got, like, both Biden and Kamala Harris really do not like Boris Johnson because they don't like his racist comments about Barack Obama. And it's like, well, wait till you get a load of the book he wrote. Wait till you get a load of the things he said about letterboxes. If you want to know how racist Boris Johnson is. So we're allowed to say that again. We're not living in this weird gaslighty world. And I'm sure some people will say, no, he's not racist. But we are allowed to say that now. If you're openly racist, you should really stop. And I think maybe the time has come that people might think, actually, maybe we don't want a racist in charge of our country.
I'll come back to you, Paul, because the bloke just say, Stuart, are you pleased or are you sorry? What's your reaction to the election?
I mean, clearly I'm pleased. I mean, the short-term, optimist in me is imagining that we're going to be taking big steps away from having kids in cages. And whatever you think of, Biden's overall politics, that's a huge step for those people, and, it should be pretty transformative in the early stages, at least. I don't know if stuff's going to, change the dynamic that led to Trump being in power, but it's certainly going to be a massive improvement over what we got now.
Do you think he's going to heal America? I mean, do you think he's got a chance of healing America?
I think so. If you consider the kind of some of the people he's got around him, there's an opportunity there to make real change on some of the factors that are kind of driving division in America. So, I'm positive about it.
I mean, is he not going to I mean, first of all, the Senate's against him. He's not going to be able to get anything through the Senate, so it's all going to have to go by executive order. And every time, do you not think that every time he does anything, the Trumpites are going to be out on the streets, shooting guns and not wearing masks and getting cross about it? I mean, do you not see that? Do you not think that the power of a president to heal the American nation, an American nation so polarized, is strictly limited? I'm very sort of despondent about it. Are you telling me that you think he's got a chance there?
I think he's got a chance. I mean, there's no certainties in this. I mean, we would hope that this might create some kind of political shift in the Republican Party itself, and people start, behaving more moderately in politics in America.
Sam, I was going to ask one question, but I'm not now. I'm going to change my question. I mean, what they're saying is that this is going to this development, which is essentially basically the American politics has not only stopped moving in one direction, it's actually made a small reverse in the other direction now. I mean, but they're saying that this is going to require massive changes in both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. I mean, how do you see those changes actually coming about over the next few months?
Well, that is really the question, isn't it? I would like to think that there will be some significant change. I think that somebody said in the last week, Trump wasn't the problem. Trump was the outcome of problems that were started by politicians like Joe Biden. And I think we have to really recognize that is an issue, that, people of the working class, for want of a better term, feel misrepresented. They feel like they don't have any power, and they feel like authority figures are not to be trusted and inherently duplicitous, and so there is lots of healing that needs to happen on all sides. Lilith in the comments says people didn't vote for Biden, they voted against Trump. I mean, I don't know. I can't. All I know of America is my American friends on Facebook, and I don't have a lot of those. So I couldn't attest to that. I would just like to see what we have seen in the last few years that is credited with some of the movement is lots more voter engagement among ethnic minorities. I'm not allowed. Me and Paul had a situation the other day where I got told off for saying ethnic minorities, but the person who told me off couldn't give an appropriate alternative term. If I do offend you with anything I say,
the chairman of the FA has had to resign today because
rightly so. So I totally.
Wow.
Words matter, and if I ever say anything that is offensive to anybody, please do correct me, and I will learn and I will own up to that. But Black and brown people in America have been enfranchised by powerful local activists and organizers. So I just hope that whatever direction it does go into, it goes into a direction of more.
Many of those people, Sam, many of those people of color voted for Trump. Black Americans voted for Trump in huge numbers. They exercised their right to think and actually didn't just go blindly with the Democrats. They went with Trump. And the Latino vote went massively to Trump. And sort of when you think what Trump had been doing to Mexicans, so sort of you think, what on earth is going there? It's crazy. Paul's shaking his head. Come in, Paul.
It didn't go massively. It didn't go massively. The Latino vote. It's like kind of it shifted a little bit, but actually, you're talking about like what they're focusing on is the Cuban Americans in Florida a lot of the time, and they did shift a long way. However, they shifted a long way towards Republican under George W. Bush, to vote for George W. Bush. And I think it was something to do with the Clinton administration deporting a young Cuban child back to Cuba. So this has been happening for a long time, and people try and cover things up, and they were saying they're scared of socialism. Well, actually, yes, a lot of people who are Cuban Americans who moved from Cuba to America to either because they were kicked out, their families were kicked out many years ago during the Cuban Revolution, or they hated Cuba as it was, as a communist state. So yeah, socialism is going to scare Cubans who don't like communism. It won't scare Cubans who do like communism.
Just coming in there on you, Paul, is it not the case that the election of Biden was as much a rejection of socialism as it was a rejection of Trumpism?
No. Not at all, and this has been a really interesting discussion that's been going on, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was absolutely brutal in her assessment of the Democrats. So what they tried to do is they tried to suggest that the people in the Senate who didn't do well because of socialism. And then she looked into it, and then she said, like, people who support the Green New Deal, people who support Medicare for all, those people got elected. So these people who, in America, those are considered radical policies. The people who stood for Senate and then said that they wanted to support those things on a radical platform, they were elected. And the people who didn't, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that they were doing things like spending $5,000 on TV ads or $5,000 on Facebook in the week leading up to the election. Now, that is not acceptable, and she's saying this is absolutely ridiculous. And she says she knows the weaknesses in the Democratic Party because she's been exploiting them for years in order to get radical people elected, sort of on the ticket to stand as senators, like herself, like the squad. And really, there needs to be some sort of recognition from centrist politicians, and I'm not dismissing centrism at all. I like a bit of pragmatism, but I don't think extreme centrism is pragmatism, because I don't think centrism particularly has any ideas at the moment. I think it's totally devoid of ideas. It's just saying, well, who are you compromising between? You're compromising between neoliberalism and nothing. So anyway.
So I'm going to interrupt you once more, because I want we need to finish and bring in our candidate. But I want to ask you one question before we go. Do you not think, when you saw the chaos, which is the American electoral system, do you not think that Trump has a point, and that we have here a deeply flawed, a crazy electoral system, which sort of last time delivered a result which wasn't what the people of America wanted, and this time it's going to be, they're still going to be counting on the 13th, we're told. Sort of, I mean, is it not a flawed system that needs reworking?
Yeah, it is. It's gone far too far in Trump's favour. The popular vote has gone massively in favour of Biden. So that's obviously a problem, but it's not a problem because Trump deserves to get better out of the system. He deserves to have been beaten more. And also, traditionally, the system was set up in order to give an advantage to slave states. So, like, if you go back in time long enough, that is why the Electoral College works where it is. It is a kind of racist system where slave states were given a slight preference. And I don't know enough about this, but I do have it on good authority from my friend Sam, who not this Samantha, my friend Sam, who says this is definitely how it works. So ask him why it works like that.
Well, all I've got to say on this is that if I was in America now, I would be paying people from Sunderland to come over and tell me how to run an election, because it strikes me that Sunderland are way better. Right, I'm going to let in our guest, our candidate. Here he comes.
Just while we are doing that, just a recognition of Kamala Harris being elected, not only the first woman, but a non-white woman, black and, is it South Asian people are describing her from? Yes. So very good, very pleased with that outcome.
Yeah, and wonderful, and clearly the next president in waiting.
It's fantastic.
And apparently called Kamala.
Kamala, not Kamala.
I just learned this.
Kamala.
Apparently, correct us in the comments if I'm wrong, but apparently it's Kamala.
Kamala,
No.
Diana.
Kamala like Pamela.
Pamela, as in Pamela. But sort of, I don't know where the name. Sorry, Jed, we're just chatting away. We haven't finished talking about the American election yet, and we've let you in. So we'll be with you in 2 seconds, friend. Actually, is it not? Is it a name of Native American origin, Kamala? Or do you know where it comes from?
I don't think she is Native American.
No, well, in that case, I'm completely.
She's of Indian descent.
Yes.
Oh, that's mean. Yeah, that's awful. Anyway. Anyway, if anybody knows where the name Tim Dredge will find out. Where does the name Kamala come from, and is it pronounced Kamala? We obviously need education. Hello, Jed.
Good evening.
It's great to see you. You are our candidate. Hello?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, what we're going to do is we do this just to introduce you to the world, so the world can see who you are. But I think they probably know who you are anyway. You're very prominent in local politics. But nevertheless, thank you for coming on to the show. We're going to ask you a question each, and let's people will be able to see what you've got to say. So my question is the one that kicked off. Can you tell us why you want to be a Labour county councillor?
Well, I guess the simple answer to that would be that I'm a member of the Labour Party, and therefore, if I was to stand in an election, it would have to be as a Labour Party candidate. But why do I want to be a county councillor is not the other different matter. I've spent my whole life, adult life, serving others, and I feel like I've been contributing to society. So much so it's become a way of life. My first career was in the army, as a lot of people know, serving at home and abroad for about 17 years, including 3 tours of active service. During that time, I became involved in charity events and charity fundraising, and it's something I've carried on doing ever since. My real step into politics was becoming a county councillor on Great Acre Town Council in 2012, and the municipal year 2016-17, I was really exceptionally fortunate to be elected the mayor of Great Aycliffe and chair of the council. I've also been a county councillor previously and chair of one of the committees at Durham County Council. So I understand the role of a county councillor and the significant responsibilities that go with that role.
Having been a county councillor, Jed, by the way, what committee was it?
I was the chair of the HR committee.
Of course, right. And then having been a county councillor and seen the grief that a county councillor gets, why do you want to do it again?
I found the role quite challenging, but very interesting. It's a real opportunity to shape what goes on in the county, and something that, you know, as a member of the public, you can have a say on polls and questionnaires and things. But when you're a councillor and you go into those committees and the Labour group meetings up there, you actually are the one that's contributing to the shaping of the council's strategic plan. And, you know, the reason you're up there is to actually represent the people that have put you there and to make County Durham a better place for us all to live in.
Brilliant answer. Paul, your turn.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks for what you did to represent us at the Remembrance Sunday events this weekend. I saw your pictures and they looked particularly good. So you and Wendy there, so that was really good. And I've noticed your poppy there as well. So right, that's what reminded me. I've got a poppy on as well there. So I would just want to know what particular thing you would like to do as a county councillor if you were elected. Is there anything specific that you'd like to do?
I think something that affects us all is, and I don't know whether it's getting worse or just seems to get worse as you get older, is antisocial behaviour. And you know, as I think see the rise of it, previously, years ago, I was employed by Sedgefield Borough Council as a neighbourhood warden, and I've spent a lot of time working with young people, trying to tackle antisocial behaviour and sort of curb some of the extreme tendencies of youth. And I don't know whether it does appear to be on the rise again, but the resources of the county hall and across the county in tackling that seem to be dwindling at the same time. Police numbers are down. The number of wardens covering the county is probably about the same as we had just covering Sedgefield Borough 15 years ago. And one of my priorities, I think, would be a multi-faceted approach to working with the main housing provider, Living, the police, Durham County Council's neighbourhood team, to try and bring some of that interaction to Newton Aycliffe and look at the problem of antisocial behaviour and allay that fear of crime in the older population.
Would you do something about youth facilities? Would you be campaigning for the reopening of the youth club and things like that? Sort of prevention rather than enforcement. I mean, where do you lie between the balance with those two things?
I think it was a retrograde step to phase out the youth workers and the funding that was there for the community centres to give some of those people something to do in the evenings and weekends. And I know that some of them are still open, but not on the same scale of activity as there was before. And those youth support workers were invaluable. And I think we need to swing the balance the other way and bring some of that back.
If you can find the money, we'll be delighted. And finally, Sam.
Sorry, multitasking, lost my mouse. What campaigns, Labour Party campaigns or community campaigns have you been involved with, Jed?
Where do you want me to start?
Yes, from the beginning.
I've been an officer of Aycliffe East branch since 2006 when I became the secretary. I gave up being the secretary in 2018 when I became the chair of the branch. I'm still the chair. During that time, I was the campaign coordinator, stroke agent for everyone who stood for election for the town and the county, doing all of them election returns and coordinating those with all the receipts and everything. I've been involved in campaigning for all of those elections and the by-elections in between. What else have I done? I've certainly with the CLP for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been the auditor along with Wendy. I've also been membership officer and more recently job sharing the policy officer role with the incredibly gifted Tom Brooks. Pleased to have on my CV a suggestion that actually made it onto the manifesto before the last election for the reintroduction of free dental treatment. I was heavily involved in door knocking and campaigning for the EU referendum, standing in line for the Remain. Unfortunately, didn't go our way, but we'll reap the benefits of someone else's success in that respect at a later date, I'm sure. Previously, as a county councillor in the community, certainly I secured Section 106 money and GAMP funding along with Sarah Iverson, the other county councillor for Aycliffe East, to get money for the creation of a Mooga at Moor Lane and the refurbishment, total rebuild of the Bailey All Green play area, which was becoming very dilapidated. Marked them as good achievements.
Did you not get something done about the woodland? Was there something I remember you doing about a woodland area in around there, or am I muddling that up with the Balliol Green play area?
No, the Seven Hills area got some funding. To be honest, that was more Steve Cooper and the town council that did that.
Just before you go, Jed, your policy officer, what Labour Party policy would you change?
Do you know, if we were running for a general election tomorrow, I would be quite happy to campaign on the manifesto we had for the last election. It was sound, the principles, the passion behind it, and the benefits that would bring to the community were immense. And you know, it was one of the best manifestos that's been put together for an awful long time by the Labour Party.
Thank you. Absolutely brilliant. You're so welcome. I'm hoping that the people will feel that we've got a good look at you and what you're thinking. I'm hoping that you're going to go away thinking, well, I made a good account of myself there. Thank you so much, Jed, for visiting us, and best in luck when it comes to the selections. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye. I think that's just so important. Thank you for your questions, but it's so important that we see these people and one thing that came out last week, wasn't it, that some of these people have never seen them. I mean, everybody knows Jed because he was the mayor, but it's some of the people who were standing. It's the first time ever people have seen them. Anyway, we're ready now. That is just so brilliant. Stuart, lockdown.
Oh, where do you want me to start on that?
Was it a mistake? But the fact is that my real question is anybody actually doing it? I mean, talk to us about lockdown.
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like a proper lockdown compared to the first one.
It does not, no.
No, lots of people keep saying that it's just the pubs closed. It's just a mass restaurant closure.
In the old days when we had a proper lockdown.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like a lockdown to me because I got a letter saying, stay at home, don't go to the shops. If you've got a job, don't go to it. Because I'm extremely vulnerable because I'm on immune suppression, and my daughter, her bubble, her cohort is currently isolating. So they're at home. My wife is still continuing to work from home where she can. You know, it feels like a lockdown for me, but from what I can see of the world going on around me, it doesn't feel like a lockdown elsewhere.
My son just rings us up every day and shouts at us to stay in the house. And we're like naughty teenagers. Occasionally, Barbara and I sneak out and go for a run in the car or go and get a takeaway. And he finds out and we get into the most awful trouble. But he I mean, you see the roads, they're just as busy as ever. And you wonder how it's going. I mean, do you think it's going to fail, Stuart?
I think it's going to fail in its intended purpose, solely on the basis that it's not the kind of lockdown that we needed, and it didn't take place when we really needed it to. So I think at this point it's more of a gesture to try to slow any creep just very slightly, rather than tackle it the way we should have. When the Labour Party said we needed a 2-week circuit breaker all those weeks ago, that would have timed so nicely with the half term for the kids. There wouldn't have been as much loss there if we'd had to need to close the schools for a week at that point. Wrong time.
Paul, 25,000 cases a day. I mean, I am terrified. I mean, do you think we'll get Christmas?
Christmas will come around. It won't be anything like it would have been before. I don't think people say there's this time of year I really look forward to being in with my family, you know, maybe stick the fire on, you have sit around the Christmas tree, have a lovely time, watch some films and stuff like that, and it's like I've just been in for months and months and months. That is not particularly hugely different to my life at the minute. Like, we are sitting in watching films, it is lovely with my family, but it's a bit like anticlimactic. You know, when the whole system, it's just like they've taken the fun out. It's like, did you see there were some French students rioting? So, like, the students were saying, this is not safe. Children, students, like teenagers, they were saying it's not safe to go into school. You're forcing us to go in. They were tipping over police cars and all sorts. Right over here, with like they'd saying go to work.
The people in Eskdale, don't give them ideas. For goodness sake.
The French know how to protest though. So like, we're having a few like absolute anti-mask crazy people going to London. I hate that word. Sorry, I shouldn't really use the word crazy because it's not very nice. But if they go to this anti-mask rally, yeah, fine. But what we're being told is go to work, put yourself in danger. Like, every single day I'm within this far of some children all the time, or I'm sitting in a classroom that's just like circulating air that is if someone in there's got COVID, we're going to get it. This is happening all over the place. Every single teacher I talk to is saying this is really, really going to spread in the schools, and everyone's just sort of pretending like, oh yeah, it's COVID secure because we've got like some hand gel. Well, hand gel isn't going to stop an aerosolized virus. There's been 532 deaths today. 532. That's a hell of a lot of deaths. And you know what? It's not going to slow down the way they're doing it. All they've done is said, actually, go to work, don't have any fun. So they're just being really authoritarian. And we're seeing some backlash from Tory MPs here about how, like, you know, because a lot of Tory MPs are quite libertarian, where they think you should just be able to do whatever you want. And I kind of get that argument when we're being told, actually, as an authoritarian, you have to go to work and you're not allowed to go and have any fun afterwards. We talk as colleagues in my work all the time. We're like, we can sit in a room together, but we couldn't go and sit in a room together and have a drink at the end of a difficult day. So there's a lot of civil liberty going out of this place. Like, if it's a lockdown, it should be a lockdown to stop the spread of the virus. We're not stopping the spread of the virus, but we are stopping people from having some aspects of the life that could be enjoyable.
I tell you what, Paul, I am fed up of getting up in the morning, coming down, sitting in front of my computer, sitting here all day, working away, and then going to bed. And you're absolutely right. The fun has gone out of life. You're just ploughing on, and it's going on and on. And to add to what you're saying, children, can't blame them getting fed up, because what's happening is they're in school with people, they're sat next to people in the classroom all day. They go home, they're supposed not to play out on the streets together. They've got to stay in their houses because they've got to be isolating. And you just think, there's no wonder that people are just saying, this is a crazy system.
The ludicrous nature of it, just a really quick one to add to that. The ludicrous nature of it is they can travel in, separate bubbles can travel in the same school transport. They get dropped off at school, they get split into bubbles. They're not allowed to interact with each other's bubbles. Then, at the end of the day, they could come out, they can go on the same transport together, all of them mix again on transport until they get home, and then they're not allowed to see each other at all. They've got to isolate from each other. That doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense.
Do you think, do you see it as, I mean, the other argument is that it's just absolutely, for goodness sakes, do as you're told. It was much more worse in the Second World War. Just stay in. What's the problem? We've got a coronavirus out there. Do as you're told. Or do you think it is an assault on liberty that needs resisting?
I wouldn't say that, you know, we should be resisting any, you know, policy that was designed to keep us safe, but I don't think this is going to keep us safe from all the things that could really affect our lives. I know when I read that letter that came to me, and it said, you know, you're super vulnerable. Don't don't go to work. If you've got to go to work, here's some ideas of the things that you might be able to claim for in the future. But I'm still realistically, if I can't get a delivery slot from Tesco, you've still got to go to the shops. You know, there's still these things where there's no win situations. People are still going to die from the complications of trying to live through this lockdown as much as they are going to die from, you know, contracting COVID. It's really difficult.
It's hard. Sam, I mean, I'm going to move on now to the next thing because sort of, I mean, part of this is that Sunak has stepped up again to the mark, hasn't he? I mean, is he doing too much? Is he doing too little? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Talk to us about Rishi Sunak and his what he's up to.
So, like the lockdown, this is the Conservative government announcing a policy that should have been announced a month ago, at least. I mean, it's really hard because the going back to furlough is such a huge and really positive that they've decided to extend the furlough scheme. The crime is that he announced the extension to the furlough scheme on the day that the previous furlough scheme ran out. So it was too late to save jobs. I'm talking to people like every couple of days. Oh, it was too late for me. We got made redundant. You know, so it's too little, too late. You can't just turn around at somebody. Oh, well, apparently you can. Apparently you can turn around to somebody after you've let them go and say, "Oh, I'm going to rehire you so I can furlough you." You know, it's so messy. It's so messy. The Labour Party saw this coming. Most people who aren't politically engaged saw this coming and thought, actually, should we just keep hold of furlough for a little bit longer? France did it, Germany did it. Most of the countries that were planning on these lines had already planned that these measures were going to stay in place until next year. So it's really galling to me that suddenly he's a hero when actually he's acted too little, too late for a lot of people. And let's not forget, lots of people are still excluded from any government financial support at all. If you had a mixed income, if you did some work or casual work and some self-employment to top that up, you are likely unable to claim anything. If you invested in your business over the last few years, so your profits were lower because you were investing in yourself, you may not be entitled to anything. If you just started to be self-employed recently, you're not entitled to anything. And I really think they need to look at that because I'm in the Facebook group because I am a self-employed person who's not been entitled to any support and has had a business, hasn't quite gone under yet, but it probably will. People in that Facebook group, they've had 4 suicides. You know, this is real. This is life and death stuff. They need to extend support to that group urgently.
The thing is that people are getting in that group, are getting trapped where they've been saving up for their retirement because they can't claim benefits. And so what they're doing is they're finding that all that money that they saved aside for their retirement, in fact, is now they're just having to use that to live, and we're stacking up problems for the future there. Paul, Rishi Sunak, here, I'm sorry, Paul, but he's made the difference between the youth and community centre surviving and not surviving. It's as simple as that. We were going to have to tell people out in January that was it, until he stepped in with that. So he's our hero to a degree. Paul, hero or villain?
I just think he's devoid of ideas. You know, he's someone who comes from the banking class of people. You know, he's someone who was actually directly involved in the 2008 financial crisis. They are completely wedded to the idea that government deficits will end up in the hands of the richest. That's what they do. They could have been so imaginative with this. They could have done all sorts of different things. And I've done, anyone who'll listen really recently, I've been talking about things that they could have done with this money. Instead of furlough, they could have done a guaranteed job scheme, because they keep on saying these jobs aren't going to be there to go back to. So what about a guaranteed job scheme to do with climate change? So there's plenty of work to do around climate change. Why couldn't we have employed people to do that long term? Because they have proven that you can invest this money, you can do quantitative easing. Why doesn't quantitative easing help ordinary people? Why isn't this quantitative easing ending up in the pockets of maybe builders, or maybe people who are planting trees, or maybe people who are installing solar panels or wind? All those things. If the money goes to those people who are working, that will be spent in the community, and communities will become richer. But what's happening is we're seeing all this quantitative easing, all this investment that they're calling it, actually furlough 80%, so people are a bit poorer, they've got less to spend, but meanwhile they're wasting thousands of millions, so billions, on their test and trace system that doesn't work. And we're seeing the wealthiest people in the world getting richer, because that is where deficits end up in neoliberal economies. Deficits for countries can either end up with the people or with the richest. Well, they're people as well. So it'll end up with the people. It just depends which people. Would you rather it go to the 99.9% of people who will spend that money, or would you rather it end up in the Cayman Islands? Because that's where it's going at the minute. He has no imagination whatsoever. The only thing he came up with was Eat Out to Help Out, which has turned out was a super spreader event.
Good. Last comment, really. Sort of, what would you do? How do we need to deal with the economic mess? Oh, Stuart. Oh, sorry. I thought you were frozen.
No, I mean, that's a big question. How do you fix the economic mess?
Sorry.
Come on then, Stuart. Sort yourself out.
Like, exactly. If anybody had any idea for actually creating something, rather than just coming up with the option of what other choice did Sunak have, but to do furlough. If he'd been more creative in the beginning, we would be in a lot better place for our economy coming out of this.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. We are at the end of our time. I was going to ask you what you thought of Phoenix Window, but we haven't got time. We're going to say goodbye. We're going to play No Pass Around, and then we're going to. Have we got any questions this week?
We've got some comments.
We'll just have a short time afterwards. So, goodbye, Paul. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Stuart, bye-bye.
For now.
Goodbye.
Samantha.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye. We'll play No Pass Around. You're welcome to come back, but if you're going now, thank you for watching. Goodbye. God bless.
Keep the red flag flying here.